Hi everyone, it's Peter from the Sampleist, and today I'll walk you through the 4 tiers of the Orchestra family from Best Service and Sonuscore. The Orchestra is a dynamic inspirational tool that helps any composer fast-track their orchestrations, with the 5-instrument ensemble engine at its core. I personally also find it to be a great learning tool. Even if you're a more seasoned composer, you will likely find some new ideas in the myriad of orchestration examples provided. The Orchestra family consists of 4 tiers of products plus 3 different specialized tools, all of which use the free Kontakt player. A full breakdown of individual articulation and feature differences across these 7 products is available on the Sonuscore website, but here is a quick summary, and yes, I have made a slide. So first, the recently released Orchestra Elements is the lowest tier of the Orchestra family. It is free, making it a great way to get a feel for this product line and test how it fits into your workflow. It has the basic set of features, including the ensemble engine and preset tag browser, 30 presets split evenly among orchestral colors, orchestral rhythms, and animated orchestra categories, 23 string, 8 brass, and 8 woodwind articulations, plus the plucked harp and female O sustains. Articulations cannot be changed within presets, but tweaks can be made to the ensemble engine. It requires Kontakt Player 6.7.1 or higher and takes 4 GB of disk space. The next level up is the Orchestra Essentials, which retails for $99. It adds the ability to swap individual instruments out when browsing presets so that you can really begin to tweak and experiment. The number of presets bumps up to 99, again evenly split between categories. There are now 38 string, 12 brass, and 12 woodwind articulations. An organ toccata is added, along with 3 percussion elements. It is important to note that some of the articulations in the Orchestra Essentials come from the specialized packs rather than the standard version of the Orchestra. The Evil Brass, for example, has 3 articulations here, which are from Horns of Hell, but are not present in the Orchestra. Essentials requires Kontakt Player 6.6.0 or higher, and 5.27 GB of disk space. After Essentials is the Orchestra, the original product in this line, which retails for $299. At this level, individual instruments are included as separate NKIs, and multis are included as well. Presets can be saved and shared within the ensemble engine. There are 192 presets, 87 individual NKIs, and 75 multis. For articulations, there are 25 string, 15 brass, 19 woodwind, 10 percussion, 7 choral, and a plucked harp. Among the more noticeable articulation additions are legatos. The Orchestra requires Kontakt Player 5.7.1 or higher and takes 6.85 GB of disk space. Note that this edition and Strings of Winter are the only 2 products that, at the time of this review, are missing the detailed revamped preset browser. There are also the 3 specialized packs, Strings of Winter, Horns of Hell, and Woods of the Wild. Each of these retails for $149, with different focus areas that inform the available instruments, articulations, and presets. Each one contains over 100 new presets and or multis, and 64 to 105 new articulations, with Woods of the Wild being on the high side of those. And finally, we have the Orchestra Complete 3, which includes all articulations and features from each of the mentioned Orchestra family of products, plus some extras that can't be found anywhere else. It retails for $479. MIDI export is unlocked in this edition, allowing you to easily expose the MIDI generated by the ensemble engine for further tweaking, routing, or elaboration. The legato engine is improved, the arpeggiator is upgraded to a full sequence designer, free note selection is unlocked, and the GUI gets a bit of a facelift. In total, there are 670 presets, 364 multis, and 315 NKIs. On the articulations front, we are up to 94 on the strings, 46 for the brass, 109 for the woodwind, and 11 for choir. There are also effects for strings, brass, woodwind, organ, deep hits, and the full orchestra. And then on top of that, they add 4 key articulations, 15 organ articulations, 10 small untuned percussion instruments, and 4 more tuned percussion instruments. The Orchestra Complete 3 runs in contact 6.7.1 or higher and takes 25 gigabytes of disk space. There are also 3 synthesizer-focused libraries considered part of the family: Elysian 2, Dark Horizon, and Horizon Leads. Elysian consists of rounded orchestrations and has been a staple of mine for a couple of years. Dark Horizon provides a focus on bass and takes on a very gritty flavor. Horizon Leads focuses on, well, leads. This last one was also covered by the Sampleist team, so if the concept intrigues you, please be sure to check it out. Cross-grade prices are generally available for these if you own any other paid product of the Orchestra family. At the time of this review, there is a 50% off sale on Orchestra family products, except for the very new Horizon Leads, which lasts through July 31st, 2024. If you already own a member of the family, be sure to check out the cross-grade and upgrade options and hang on for the annual Best Service Step Up sale. Thanks to Best Service and Sonuscore for review copies of the Orchestra Essentials, the Orchestra, and the Orchestra Complete 3. As usual, while they provided us with review copies, they did not have any input into the decision-making process or review, and have not seen this review ahead of time. So, I will now go through the sounds of Elements, Essentials, the Orchestra, and Complete 3 in turn, and focus on some of the standout features of each before I head to a demo that also demonstrates the different features of each. Okay, so here we are with the Orchestra Elements. I am going to use this as a way to demonstrate the 3 different categories of presets that exist in the orchestra. So first we have our orchestral voicings category, and in particular we have the strings full sustain, which has the sustain of all 5 of your usual culprits in your string section, and it sounds like this. Okay, so just opening the preset browser here, you see you are able to filter on those 3 categories plus a few other things. So this is the newer and extended browser. So I will flip over to the rhythms. The voicings are essentially meant to be played without necessarily having movement added by the engine. So it's just mixes of different articulations that are meant to be played freely. The orchestral rhythms has rhythms. Yes, I know, surprising. These are meant to be a little bit more simple, basic, kind of straightforward rhythms that don't add a lot of melodic or complex content. So just some basic stuff. Let's throw in some brass here. Some brass eighths. Okay, and then one example from the animated orchestra. These are a bit more complex than the rhythms. They'll have maybe a little bit more interesting or melodic content to them, and have a bit more going on in terms of different moods they can convey. So let's call the Guardians. fair bit going on in these animated patches. I'll flip over quickly to the ensemble engine. So this is the core of the orchestra, and it is present throughout the line of products, even the kind of secondary products that are synthesizer focused have a very similar engine behind them. So I won't go into the full detail. I'm mostly going to talk about the comparisons between the different editions of the orchestra. So there's lots of content out there that gives you the full details, but just to say, pretty much the full engine is present in all editions of the orchestra. There is a slightly improved sequencer that you get with the Orchestra Complete 3, which I'll show you when I get there. But pretty much everything is based off the same stuff. So 3 arpeggiators and 2 envelopes, which will attach themselves appropriately to different articulations. So short articulations will attach to one of the 3 arpeggiators, and long sustained articulations will attach themselves to the envelopes. Okay, so you are not able to change the different articulations that go into a preset. You can change which arpeggiator they go to and what the actual settings of the arpeggiator or envelope are. So still a fair bit of tweakability, and you can even change this octave tracker here, the octave shift. So you just can't change these articulations. It'll tell you to upgrade, but that's still quite a bit of tweakability, in my opinion, that you get with this free version. We'll jump over to Essentials, give you a few more presets there. All right, now with Essentials pulled up, we'll see we've jumped from 30 to 99 presets. So if I poke through the orchestral colors, you'll see you pretty much have the bread and butter stuff. So full strings, full woodwind, full brass sections, and then some orchestral mixes, broad orchestral mixes, and some more specific types of orchestral mixes as well. So let's listen to a couple of these. Okay, so there's a few options that are available in the essentials. And switching back here, you can see we are now able to swap out articulations on our own and mute and solo them from here. So really adds that extra layer of tweakability if you find a pattern that you like and the timbre is just not quite what you wanted, or it sits in the wrong part of the orchestra, or you want to just add a new flavor to it, you can quickly swap any or all of these out and see how things sound. So really easy to use there. So next we'll flip over to the orchestra. And here we are with the original orchestra. So I'm going to play through a few presets here, then we'll go through some of the individual instruments. But first, yeah, as you can see, the preset browser here is a little bit different than what you've seen so far. So a little bit of a simpler list that just has these filters. Though there is this user presets filter, you can now save the user presets and scan for user presets that you may have gotten from others, which is always a handy feature. So let's start out with a couple more colors. Now I'm going to just show a couple of the individual NKI articulations, just to give you an example of what that interface looks like. So let's pull up the violins. So we have a confined view, looks a bit different than with the ensemble engine, excuse me. And you can see we have multiple key switches to go through our different articulations. You can also alt-click, or I can't remember what that would be on Mac. That's command or no, option. Anyways, there's a way you can activate multiple articulations at once. So right now I've got a staccato picked. Okay, and if I want to just use that staccato to emphasize the start of a sustain note, I'll have those both selected. So handy to be able to do that. Key switches are down here to be playable on the keyboard. And let's listen to a little bit of the legato. For the sake of time, I'm not going to go through a whole bunch of these. Instead, I'll jump over to a couple of the multis so you can hear how that sounds. There are lots of full walkthroughs of all of the presets of the orchestra, and I'm more hoping to just compare the different editions to give you a feel for what sorts of features are in there. And these single articulations and multis first appear when you hit this sort of tier of instruments. So as an example now of the multis, I'm going to pull up one of the big orchestra. Let's pull up the big orchestra sustains. Right, so we can see this multi, it's got the strings full sustain, the brass full sustain, and the wood full sustain, which gives you that rich, full orchestral sound. Let's take a look at a couple of the orchestral rhythms. So look at one of the big orchestra basic 16ths. I do have a great deal of fun playing these. Okay, and one from the animated orchestra. So these are a little bit more of an interesting sort of mix versus the rhythms and colors, which are generally just adding more orchestral elements to the same feel. These ones can kind of combine different takes on the same feel or maybe different feels. So let's, for example, take a look at Colossus. So here we have a mix of Warrior's Path, a basic 16th pulse, and a low marcato from the orchestra. So those kind of combine together to give you a pretty cool patch to play. So that's the orchestra, the bass, the original, the well-loved orchestra. Last we'll jump to the Orchestra Complete 3. And right off the bat, you'll notice the user interface has changed. It's a bit wider, a little bit more refined. And you have this export MIDI button up at the top. So when you're in a DAW and you start playing, this will become active and it'll let you export the data right into your DAW, which is pretty awesome because then you can tweak it to your heart's content, or you can swap out the orchestra with other sounds in your arsenal if you prefer them, or you can elaborate on the patterns, or you can duplicate the patterns into the full orchestral suite. It really opens up the options there. The engine also has a bit of an overhaul here. So our arpeggiators get a bit of an upgrade so that we can make them sequences instead. And it allows you to select the note offsets. So it'll really let you drive these presets into making something extra special, something magical. So I'm going to play through a couple of these. I will mention, so looking at the preset browser, we're back to the extended detailed preset browser, and you'll see the expansions: Strings of Winter, Horns of Hell, Woods of the Wild. You can filter down to those if you're familiar with them, or even if you understand the style that they were going for, and that style speaks to you. And as before, you have the different moods, the different characters, and different time signatures and feels to help you narrow down, because now we're dealing with multiple hundreds of presets, so you really need to be able to narrow this down based on your specific track. And don't forget, you can favorite things and then filter by your favorites, so that's very helpful as well. Why don't we just kick this off with something different? So I like this. Let's try a comedy staccato. And I'm going to leave it there for the preset walkthrough. There's just way too much to go through. And again, I'm trying to focus on the comparison here. And I think the demo should be a pretty good way to illustrate the differences. So why don't we jump over to that, pay attention to the different sections. I've tried to focus on each of the 4 levels as we go through the 4 different sections of the song to give you an idea of what sort of things are possible at each level. So sit back, relax, and let's enjoy some orchestra. And that's the demo. You'll notice on the top, I have these markers with abbreviations for the different focus areas. And I've also made things color coded. So hopefully it was easy to follow which version I was using. Everything in here is only the orchestra. There's no extra effects or processing or instruments. It is 100% the orchestra. So elements first, then essentials, then the bass orchestra, and then the orchestra complete 3 in those blocks. To start, we have a pattern, an animated orchestra, along with a sustain. So with the orchestra elements, there's not a huge selection, and you aren't able to kind of single out individual instruments or swap things in and out. But you do get, I think, a handful of really useful orchestral colors to use, which include some of these sustains. And then, of course, 10 each of the animated and rhythm areas. And those are both, with all of those together, it's definitely possible to create really useful beds for your compositions, which is what I've done here. So those 2 elements here, the sustain and this shoot to kill pattern. Both together do provide a really useful bed. I could put a lot of other stuff on top of this sort of thing, but it gives me a really good background and drive. So really, I mean, if you're at all interested in this, I do recommend picking up the free Orchestra Elements. It's definitely worth a look, and if you're just starting out, it is really useful to have these things in your back pocket to just get you started with something. You can always start out with them just to get that in there right on top of it, and then swap them out later if you want to, so that you're not using the same 10 animated presets that anybody else would. But I think it'll really help you understand how it fits into your workflow, where it fits into your workflow, if it fits into your workflow. So highly recommend that. When we move into this next section and I've pulled in elements, we're again mostly stuck with the colors and the animated and rhythmic portions. We technically don't have individual instruments, but you can swap instruments in and out, so it's easier to kind of come out with some sort of more singled out instrument. So I did keep the high sustain through from the elements. It's also there in essentials, so it was kind of half dozen of one, six of the other. But I've added the low sustain, which is only there in essentials, to round out the sound. I'll point out two specific things here. You'll notice in my naming, I've added this plus timpani and this plus harp. It's because I have swapped things out a little bit from the bass patch. So the bass preset, I should say. So if I pull up the Let the Battle Begin, and I've got this timpani hit in there, so I think previously maybe it was the double bass. So I can pull that up as an example. Oops, probably. There we go. So you can see this sounds pretty good. But I wanted a percussive element, so I added one. Right, and because it's already sharing arpeggiator 3 with the cello staccato, it fits right in. It's accenting something that makes sense to accent. So I really like this modular capability. Grab a preset and then swap out the instruments a bit, make tweaks to the arpeggiator, change a little bit where the accents are on, maybe change the number of steps or the pattern that's going through. You can half or double speed the entire engine. It's really useful to tweak these things. You don't have to build a patch from scratch. You can just take one that's kind of close to what you want and mess around with it, and it's a lot of fun, and it produces really nice results. And already in the Orchestra Essentials, you can do a lot of that stuff, pretty much most of that stuff actually. So even when we get to this level, we've added quite a bit of functionality. The other thing I added here was I took the Woods full sustain, I pulled out the bassoon, and I swapped out the no, I didn't. It was right. This is just essentials. So it just had these four. I added the harp, and I pulled out the bassoon, just so I wasn't muddying up the sound too much. And I got this pattern here, which really has, because of the harp, it has that percussive element, that attack, which gives it a bit more of a standout feel, so I could have it carry a melody relatively easily. And then we move into the orchestra, so I quiet everything down. And I now have started to pull out some of the individual instruments. So here we have the French horns. I've been particularly wanting to make use of the legato on this one. So a nice French horn section there. And that carries the melody in this section of the song. I love my choirs. Yes, you might know I like to do sci-fi, so choirs often find their way in what I make. Yeah, so this is one of the orchestral colors, the full sustain. The orchestra has a couple of different syllables from a sustained perspective, as well as a bonus elven choir, which does not show up in the ensemble engine, but it is there as an individual instrument. But anyways, the female and male ahs and ohs are there, and this preset just throws them all together, which makes a nice sound in there. And then once again I have made a swap on the preset enchanting moment. I've added a flute in here at the end, the flute sustain. So I think that may have been originally a different kind of sustain, but I wanted that more light, airy sound of the flute. And then we get into the percussion as well. So really useful set of non-tuned percussion patches here. So some taiko, some drum ensemble, bass drum, tam-tam, the snare, several cymbal swells that go across different dynamics and different timings, and then the actual cymbal hits, as well as the piatti hits. So that's a really good bread and butter spread of different untuned percussion. So I've brought that in now to drive the beat here. And that'll do it for the orchestra section. Through the whole thing, I've got the modulation wheel modulating a ton of stuff, and it especially for the animated orchestra and the orchestral rhythms, it makes it an easy to use build. When you use the mod wheel, it generally brings out the arpeggiator notes, the sustain kind of for a lot of the presets. The sustain is there So it just gives you that little underlay, and as you bring up the mod wheel, the arpeggiation starts to come in. So like in this section, so the arpeggiation is really, really subtle. It's mostly the sustain that you're hearing until we start to bring it up to about halfway. So really, a really nice effect to use. And then we're off into the Orchestra Complete 3. Pretty full sound here. I have a couple of multis that I've used, and if I just highlight those separately, it's not a lot of notes that I have to play, but it's created such a full sound that spans a big spectrum of the orchestra just because of the way these multis are set up. So I've got those to drive things in the background. I have a sustain in here. Yeah, which consists of quite a few of the extended articulations that you would only get in either the like Winds of Winter expansion or in Orchestra Complete. So I think the silpont and the harmonics and the Morin Khan, those are Strings of Winter specials, and then we've got the female O from the bass orchestra. So it creates a nice light sort of sustained sound. Gave it a little bit of that epicness I wanted here. And then we are just going full out on a bassoon legato. So there is a vibrato control, and obviously you can change expression with the mod wheel. I just kind of let it go all out while making this demo and being in this big epic section. Maybe this is a good time to point out a little kind of interface thing. You can actually change the graphical user interface to have these different themes. It's kind of just a fun little ad. Okay, so through this section, we at the end bring in this animation. Very pretty one. So in context, so yeah, maybe I should turn it off. Yeah, so it kind of is subtle in the mix, but you definitely miss it when it's not there. It added just that little bit of oomph in the second half of this section. And then I did this little bit of an extended ending. did that because, I mean, who doesn't want to do that? And I wanted to make sure you could see that it is doable with the Orchestra Complete 3. It gave me a chance to use one of these risers. Those are so much fun. And this little magic voicing at the end. Yeah, magic. I can't think of a better way to describe that, but it's got that trill in there with the strings. Just gives it that really pretty uplifting feel, which gave it a nice tail end. But you could also use that sort of thing to build off of. Okay, so that's it for the demo. Hopefully these different sections helped clarify where the different parts of the orchestra, or the different tiers of the orchestra, kind of change things. And this will probably be a good time to bring up our slide again. So yeah, I really love the orchestra. The ensemble engine for me is super helpful, and with the MIDI export, it also just gives me that freedom to tweak it when I'm doing something a little bit more serious and need this as a pick-me-up. I can then take it from a pick-me-up into a full-fledged orchestration. But like I said, I've been using Elysian and Elysian 2 for a few years now, and I really like it. And now with the orchestra, I'm able to bring a lot of movement and orchestration into a lot more of what I do. And as I mentioned at the beginning, it kind of helps me learn a little bit and push myself a little bit. So again, highly recommend checking out Elements, as it is free. So really just takes up 4 gigabytes and a bit of time for you to download, and then you've got 30 presets to try out and get a feel for what you think. Essentials will bump up the number of presets. It gives you that ability to swap things in and out, which is really helpful, adds a lot to what you can do. So even though the presets and articulations are not bumped up by a huge amount, you're getting a lot of the really basic bread and butter useful articulations and enough presets to understand what the engine is capable of. And with all of the tweakability, this by itself, this can be quite useful. And I did use Essentials personally on its own for a number of months, and was able to get use out of it and incorporate it into several tracks. And then bumping up to the orchestra gives you these individual instruments, these multis, and doubles essentially the number of presets that you have on your ensemble engine. Some of you may like the older version of Contact, and right now, as of this recording, it is compatible with Contact 5, so that may be a bonus for some, and still not huge on disc, but providing a very rich array of options. And then going into the Orchestra Complete 3, you've got those extra little features on the sequencer, and with the MIDI export in here, and quite a few other little tweaks that make it more convenient, in addition to the gigantic number of articulations and presets. This one, I mean, if you want to just jump in and really milk this and really get a wide variety of things you can use it for, this is where you're going to want to go. However, if you have really specific uses, where let's say you just really want something like this to help you write, gritty, punchy music, you might want to just go for Horns of Hell. Or if you're if you're up for that more, icy, beautiful, string-focused sound, you can go with Strings of Winter. So I really like the options that you have on all of these different versions. And I really hope that this video helped sort out what the differences are and give you an idea of what might fit best into your workflow. So as always, thank you for listening, and please like, subscribe. Feel free to post questions in the comments. I will do my best to answer them, and we'll see you next time on the Sampleist.